You cannot mess up your specific person manifestation. So yes, your reality and your specific person do not care that you messed up. You could literally mess up every single step of the way and you would still manifest your specific person. And the reason actually comes from a quote from a book called A Course in Miracles that if you haven't checked out yet, I definitely would. But here is that specific quote. I'll put it up on the screen. They wrote, "The Holy Spirit cannot distinguish between degrees of error. For if he taught that one form of sickness is more serious than another, he would be teaching that one error can be more real than another. His function is to distinguish only between the false with the true, replacing the false with the true." So basically what that is saying is, throughout your day, throughout your life, you're just picking your state, right? Mistakes don't actually, well, technically, according to this definition, don't actually exist. There's no such thing as messing up your manifestation because you're either just in the state of it or you're not. It's literally just as easy as that. And so when we think of making humongous, giant, crazy mistakes, your reality views those crazy mistakes just as easily solved as something very simple. You are at the same amount of distance from your specific person, no matter what error you feel that you are creating. And I love that it actually describes it in the way of sickness. So understanding that there is no one form of sickness that is more serious than another. Basically meaning, if you're in the state of being single, or being sad, or being happy, or being loved, or being depressed, or being angry, right? All of these states are just a state, and the only reason it makes them an error is if it's not the state that you want to be in. And so just as easily as we moved into the state, we can move back out of it. And so I would never, absolutely ever worry about anything wrong or terrible happening in your reality. Again, the idea that you just forgot to text your specific person back is the same as what you would term as a dramatic or amazing and massive mistake, right? There is no such thing as an error, just that you're not acting from the state. And actually the simplest way to put yourself back into that feeling, because again, you can mess up every single step of the way. I've helped people, I've done it myself, right? Kind of messed up every single step of the way, but it's actually through those mistakes that you're actually better able to distinguish what state that you actually want to be in. And that's actually, I would say, the purpose of it. Because Neville Goddard actually discusses this idea that we've talked about before called frequency, meaning the amount of time that you actually spend or the amount of times that you actually put yourself in your end state is going to distinguish what your overall state is. And the reason for that is because the more frequently you embody something, the more you're going to, or that will become your natural state. And so that's what happens. And Neville Goddard actually talked about this idea that we kind of jump between states if we're not deciding on one in particular. But in your reality, that can be perceived as a mistake. But making a mistake does not uproot your progress, does not change everything that you've done. Kind of like the video I posted, I believe it was the one yesterday. And that no matter what happens, you can always return back to a state that you want or that is more comfortable or that you might be more familiar with. So if you take some wild, crazy chances, you do something crazy, you do something that you might not have done before, do something uncomfortable towards your manifestation. For example, if you're like, you know what, for all of today, I'm just going to feel as if I already have my specific person, that I'm already together with them, that we are already married or whatever it is. Your mind will try to fight against this, right? It'll try to bring up all the errors that you feel might be impacting you. But remember, there is no such thing as an error, just acting from the state or not. And always remember, just as simply as, let's say, every possible circumstance is in between you and your manifestation. Your reality, your Holy Spirit, I would just call it like your God state that they talk about in the quote, sees you just as close to that outcome as you've ever been. Because the choice or the realization that we're just choosing who we're being, we're choosing what to focus on, we're choosing what to act from, we're choosing who to be at any current moment in time, then we understand that we could just snap our fingers and become something different instantaneously. All of these errors can actually instantaneously be used to our benefit rather than to our detriment if we just act and embody the state. But it's all about focusing on what we want rather than what we don't want, and also understanding that concept that Neville Goddard talks about, that you are going to bounce between states if there is not one that you are most certain of or most comfortable with. And because again, Neville Goddard, everyone thinks of Neville Goddard as being this like true to his imagination 100% of the time. He actually talks about how he would kind of jump between states too, and he needed this like Olympic level of attention in order to maintain the state. Now I would say when we push it into a sense of being, that's when it becomes easy and effortless, meaning you're not trying to figure out what to do, you just are that thing. That's where you don't have to realize or contemplate any single one of your thoughts. You could just act as the individual that already has it. But I really, really want you to know you are not messing up your manifestation. And if you feel you are, it's not actually altering your ability to be with your specific person. Because again, like I mentioned, I've worked with so many people who had worries, doubts, fears every single step of the way. I've had worries, doubts, and fears every single step of the way. But the crazy thing is, the more you actually live through environments or activities and things in which you doubted, but it still manifests because of your state of being, the more you'll actually believe this. Because I would say that's why I believe it so much. And that's why I understand the more you kind of do something, even if you feel you mess up, never undo the state, act from the new one. Because the more you try this out, as almost like what Neville Goddard would say, like, don't believe me, try it out. The more you act from the state, the more you will realize no mistake has ever costed you your state ever. It was the decision that we chose not to act from the state. That was the only problem. And you don't have to worry about previous mistakes you made. Let's say you and your specific person had a fight or something negative happened, right? We would term that as an error, right? We would think of us as being sick. But in the quoted terms, the idea of sickness as just not aligning with what you want, because technically every state is just as good as any other one. The only time the state becomes a sickness if it's a state that you don't want to be in. But back to that idea, let's say something not so positive has happened with you and your specific person. If that's the case, you don't have to go back and apologize or worry or need their apology or anything like that, or give them like consequences for what they did. You can just act from the new state. It's kind of like the idea that the more we give attention to undoing something from the past, the more our mind is actually embodying and pushing into that state, right? Because you can't solve a problem that doesn't exist. And so when we think of errors and mistakes, the only mistake is that we think that there is an error, or that we think there is a mistake. No matter how far you feel you are away from your manifestation, you can't be, as Neville Goddard would say, you can't see so far, or you can't be so far away as to say near. I believe that's how he words it. Basically, because nearness, if you are near your manifestation, that's implying there's distance, and there is no distance. There is no separation between you and the version of you that already has your specific person. That's within you. But it's all about the choices we're making and deciding to be that person at any point in time. And a really good example to understand how you are already there, or how you can't mess up a manifestation or no mistake actually alters it, is when you think of like instant success stories or people who manifest very quickly, which is going to be you. And if I give you an example of this, which I'll put up on the screen, this person stated that they started watching my videos a couple days ago, and now their specific person is constantly texting them. And you would say, okay, so think about, we don't know a lot about this individual. I mean, if you're out there, comment again. But the idea is, I would imagine they probably had just as many worries as everyone, because everyone I've ever spoken to had almost generally the same exact worries as I had in manifestation. As well as this, they probably would state that there were circumstances impacting their manifestation, right? All of that occurring. So if they were in the same exact position as everyone else, then how are they able to manifest it so fast, right? And you would say it's because they always had it available within them. They just had to make the choice. No mistake and no error was something that they had to overcome. They just had to remember it had nothing to do with their manifestation at all. Because again, what it said in the quote too, if he taught that one form of sickness is more serious than another, he would be teaching that one error can be more real than the other. but it's not, right? There is no distance to travel. There's no place to be. If anything, it's understanding or knowledge in order to be able to embody the state. If you knew that embodying the state led 100% to the outcome you want, you would act from it now, right? It's only that fear that potentially if we go all in or we act all out, embody the state, act as if our specific person loves us, that will somehow be let down. But remember about the video I talked about yesterday. You can do that, and if you don't like it, return back to your state. We don't think about it, but our state, your state currently as it is, everything that you're doing in your reality is always available literally as it is. It will never leave you. You can always come back to it. There's no separation. So you can try everything. Try every single possible idea when it comes to your manifestation. And if you like it, good. You're good to go, right? If you maybe affirmations or something like that, maybe you're trying a different technique and you love it and it makes you feel awesome and you see results with your specific person, amazing. If you do it and you don't get the results you want, that's okay. Return back to where you were, right? It's all about this idea that there is, again, no such thing as error or mistake, just embodying the state or not. If you did have any questions on that, make sure to comment it down below. And if you know for a fact you are just as close to your manifestation as someone who is engaged, which I guarantee you are, leave a thumbs up on this video. As well as this, if you wanted to send me a question that you didn't want to post publicly, make sure to head over to kyleaugustcoaching.com. And as always, thank you. A huge shout out to all my subscribers and a huge shout out to all my members. You guys are manifesting within the week. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and I can't wait to see you in my next video tomorrow.